Good evening, and thank you for attending. My name is Denise McKelvey, and I am the moderator for this evening's candidate debate. Before we begin, please silence all phones and electronic devices. Additionally, please refrain from any interruptions to the debate as it is being recorded for on-demand viewing and post-captioning services. The Citizens Clean Election Commission is the sponsor for this evening's event. The Clean Elections Act is a campaign finance reform and public education measure initiated by Arizona citizens and passed by the voters in 1998. The Clean Elections Act was created to allow campaigns to be more issue-oriented and less negative. The system provides full funding for qualified candidates who participate voluntarily. The candidates agree to abide by Clean Elections Act and rules, which include contribution spending limits, foregoing special interest money, as well as participating in commission debates. The candidates invited to participate tonight are in contested general elections. Candidates in uncontested general elections are not included in the debate process. For tonight's debate, questions have been prepared by Clean Elections based on a voter survey, as well as questions that have been submitted through voters through the Clean Elections smartphone app. However, we encourage live audience questions first. If you have questions, please print them clearly on the note cards you were given when you entered and hold them up. One of our volunteers will pick the cards up and deliver them to me. If you need additional cards, just raise your hand. We do screen the questions for clarity to eliminate duplications, speeches, or attacks, personal attacks, on candidates. The debate is scheduled for 90 minutes, so we may not get to all the audience questions, but we will do our best. There is an independent timer who will see to it that all the candidates have their allotted time to answer questions and will tell them when their time is up. As a courtesy to the other candidates, please respect the time limits. When the timer raises the stop sign, the moderator will stop the candidate. Tonight's debates include 1 minute each for opening statements. We'll do a quick lightning round. Then the first half of the debate begins with 2 minutes to answer audience questions. Each candidate will answer the same audience question, and we will rotate which candidate responds first. After all the candidates have responded to the question, the first responding candidate will be given an additional 30 seconds. The second half of the debate will allow a different question per candidate with 1 minute to answer. If you have questions for a specific candidate, please include the candidate's name on the note card. It will be considered during the second half of the debate. Then finally, we'll end the debate with 1 minute for closing statements. We ask that you remain polite to all the candidates and give them a fair and uninterrupted hearing, no matter how strongly you agree or disagree with anything being said. Our candidates tonight are running for office in District 1. Mr. Noel Campbell, Republican, Clean Elections candidate, running for House of Representatives. Mr. Hariaksha Gregor Knauer, Green, traditional candidate, running for House of Representatives. Mr. Peter Pearson, Democrat, Clean Elections candidate, running for House of Representatives. And Mr. David Stringer, Republican, traditional candidate, running for House of Representatives. The order in which the candidates will speak has been determined by alphabetical order, starting with the last name, for opening comments, and will progress from that starting point. The order for the second half will be determined by reverse alphabetical order by the last name. So we'll start with opening remarks. Mr. Campbell, will you start, please?
Good evening. I'm not going to go into my bio. Anybody that's interested can look it up on my website and on my legislative site. Suffice to say, I am from Arizona, and I'm in the legislature, have been for 2 years, and I'm seeking a second term. I didn't run for this office just to stand around and not do anything. I've done some important work since I've been down at the legislature, primarily the structured sober living homes that have saturated Prescott, Arizona. And I've worked on important committees. I've worked on the Public Safety Committee for retirements, and I've worked on K-12 education issues, increasing the funding. So I hope that the work that I've done down there in the last 2 years will give you confidence that I'm going to continue the work on important issues that are coming up. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Knauer.
Thank you, Denise, and Clean Elections and my fellow candidates here. I'd like to start with an expression I learned at Occupy Phoenix. Shame on you, Wells Fargo. Maybe y'all are staying current. You've heard the latest scandal. This is symptomatic of what's wrong with our banking system. And I would suggest that they are a racketeer-influenced, corrupt organization. 30 seconds to go? Huh. If you've gotten your voter guides, your pamphlets in the mail, read them. It shows you who your friends are on Props 205 and 206. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Pearson.
I'm Peter Pearson. I'm a candidate, and I'm proudly running as a Clean Elections candidate. When I was originally recruited to run after my work on the Prescott Unified School District bond and override by both Republican and local Democrat leadership, I made a decision to run as a clean election candidate on an ethical basis. Some may criticize those that do so because they claim we're lazy. We don't have to go raise funds. I'm doing it because I firmly believe we need to limit the influence of campaign expenditures and the influence of outside political action committee monies that is contaminating this level to the point where it's making national news. It should be an embarrassment for everybody in this room. And I, again, proudly embrace clean elections, limits on spending. We have some very complex issues to face. We're not going to address those with narrow political ideologies and being tied to the outside spending that we're seeing.
Thank you. Mr. Stringer.
Thank you. My name is David Stringer, and I am a candidate for the State House of Representatives for LD1. This is my second clean elections debate, and I want to commend Mr. Knauer for being here. We are traditional candidates. This is a clean elections debate. We're not really required to be here, but we want to be here because we want to be responsive to the community. So thank you, Mr. Knauer, for being here, and it's a pleasure for me to be here as well. I'm not going to repeat all of my background because this is my second debate, and my background hasn't changed since the last debate. But let me just say that my background is as an attorney and as a CPA. I'm a small businessman here in Prescott. I've been very involved in civic affairs for the last few years. Been on a number of local boards, such as the Charlotte Hall Museum Board and the Big Brothers and Big Sisters Board. Been a commissioner for planning and zoning. So I've been very involved in politics and civic affairs for the last few years in Arizona, and I'm looking forward to serving you as a candidate or as a legislator in the Arizona State Legislature. Thank you.
Thank you. So to break the ice, we'll start with the quick lightning round. Candidates, please just answer with one word. Mr. Knauer, CNN, Fox News, or MSNBC?
Fox.
Thank you. Mr. Pearson, Netflix or Hulu?
None.
Thank you. Mr. Stringer, Lumberjacks, Sun Devils, or Wildcats?
None of them.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell, Pandora or Spotify?
Pandora.
Thank you. We will now move into the first part in this portion of the debate where the candidates will all answer the same questions. The first question is for Mr. Pearson. What would be your policy if elected to address illegal immigration?
I keep hearing this mantra of we need to secure our borders. I want to quote from George W. Bush. That starts with comprehensive immigration reform that includes, and first and foremost, some sort of work permit allowances and streamlining the process. We've seen it enforced in Arizona with 1070 to nothing but controversy so far. The original pushback was from the business community. It wasn't from the progressives or liberals. It was from the business community. We need to take a step back and get away from these little canned catchphrases that are fear-based means of addressing a very complex issue. Again, it starts with comprehensive immigration policy reform. And from that is the cornerstone for effective border control.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Stringer, same question?
Thank you. I have to say I probably fall into a different camp. I think that border security is absolutely crucial to our survival as a nation and the safety and security here in Arizona. We have lost control over our border. We lost that some years ago. And I fully realize that we are a nation of immigrants. My roots are, of course, as immigrants, as probably everybody in this room. You go back a generation or two or three and you're going to find immigrants. So we understand that. But a nation without borders is not a nation. The thing that keeps a nation together and that makes a nation is sort of a shared culture, shared language, very often shared ancestry. You know, there really is no example in history of a multicultural nation that has lasted. They tend to fragment, and they tend to divide, and they tend to turn into ethnic spoils systems. So in our country, we have had waves of immigration that have changed our culture and very often in very positive ways. But right now, I think we are facing a crisis. There is a very serious threat of terrorism to our country. We don't know who's coming in here. We do know that some of the people coming in here mean us harm. So I think in order to preserve our culture and to preserve safety in this country, we do need to take another look at our immigration and our border security policies. So I would fall in the camp of close the border or restrict immigration into the United States, at least temporarily, until we get a handle on the border. I'm not opposed to immigration. I am opposed to illegal immigration. We need to know who's coming here.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell.
I don't know if most of you know this, but I worked on, I worked on the border for 27 years as a federal law enforcement officer. I lived in Mexico as a student. I learned to speak Spanish, and I really loved the work on the border. First and foremost, though, in the past when President Reagan was president, we had comprehensive immigration reform that fell on its face. We had about 3 million illegal immigrants who applied for citizenship, but they never secured the border. And until you secure the border, you're going to have an endless stream of people coming into this country. Right now, presently, down at the border in Nogales, there's over 1,000 Haitians who have come up through Mexico who are trying to get into the United States. I mean, the truth of it is we have to be able to control those people that come into our country in a legal process. And if you don't do that, you don't have a country at all. You just have masses of people who are seeking a better life, and I understand that, wanting to come into the United States. I would support immigration reform if we would deal with the first issue first, secure the border. It's not that hard. I know, I worked down there, and I worked in Mexico and Central America. I know what needs to be done. It needs to be, you're not going to stop illegal smuggling and immigration violations totally, but you can knock it down to about 95%, and that's good enough. And once we do that, then we can address the other issues. And I support a very liberal workforce employment of, for example, Mexican nationals that want to come up and work in our farm industries. I support that. But what I don't support is an open border, and we just can't have that. And if we do have it, then we really don't have a country at all. And I say that from my experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Knauer.
All right, thanks. I'd like to take it from there. We need workers in our fields, and there hasn't been much talk. It's just the same old flogging the horse, illegal, secure borders. let's issue as many work permits as we need so that we have the workers coming and going. In fact, our borders are functionally secure. People come and go. Y'all remember NAFTA? Goods and services can travel, can move across borders, but not people. It's a little bit odd. And it's a push-pull situation where their economy is pushing. It's mostly Central American now rather than Mexican. And our economy, up until our collapse in 2007, 2008, is pulling them here. The bounty of our work environment. I've worked most of my adult life because I work in low, entry-level type positions, working in the horse industry, in the adult cannabis, the medical marijuana grow. In LA, New York, and here in Chino Valley, I work alongside Mexicans, the cream of the cream. These people are hard workers. Oh, and our demographics are such, like Japan, it's just abysmal. They're needing immigrant labor, and they're not allowing any diversity across their borders. We need this labor. Oh, and if I have a few more seconds, there's a paper trail. A lot of undocumented are actually getting the equivalent of a green card or a Social Security number so that they can show that they've been paying their taxes when the time comes for the amnesty.
Thank you. Mr. Pearson, your 30-second response.
There's an agenda that's not quite hidden under the answers that some of my opponents give. I trace it back to the day that I decided to run at a June forum when the question was posed if there was any support for abolishing the state income tax. When the answer was given the changing demographics of Arizona, we need to do all we can to keep retired people coming here to make sure we keep the state red. I sincerely believe there's an agenda behind this that goes deeper than simple border control. We need diversity. Diversity is part of a thriving community.
Thank you. Next question, Mr. Stringer. What is your opinion about the private prison industry in Arizona, and do you support its expansion? Why or why not?
That's a question of some complexity, because I think that the history of the private prison industry is somewhat checkered. There are different outcomes in different places and different problems in different places. And of course, there are different providers in the private sector. This is a question and an issue that I actually have more than routine familiarity with. I practiced law in Washington, D.C., and Maryland, Virginia for a number of years. And I had experience with the criminal justice system. And I visited a number of prisoners to see clients. And I will tell you that in Washington, D.C., the D.C. jail was run by the D.C. government for many years, and there were a lot of problems. So they built an annex to the jail, and they turned it over to a leased company, Correctional Corporation of America. And they riffed out. Actually, some of the D.C. government correctional officers lost their jobs. They went over to work for the Correctional Corporation of America. When I would go to see a client, it would take me 2 and 3 hours sometimes to get in to see them at the D.C. jail. It would take me 20 minutes to see them at the Correctional Corporation of America. So I saw, firsthand that the private sector can sometimes do things more efficiently and cost effectively. There have been huge problems with private prisons, particularly in the state of Arizona. So I would not rubber stamp private prisons. I think this needs to be looked at very carefully. I have serious reservations about prison systems. Prisons are different than jails. We've had riots in our prisons. We've had laxity in the private prisons I'm speaking of. So this is not something that I would be really enthusiastic about or would want to encourage, frankly.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell.
People go to prison, they're felons. They're not there because they're lightly violating the law. To go to prison, you have to do something very serious enough that the state of Arizona wants to incarcerate you for at least a year or more. And I, working in law enforcement for as long as I did, I believe in public safety. And if we have felons that need to be incarcerated, then we have to figure out how to do that. The truth about private prisons are there are benefits to the state from an economic standpoint. First of all, they're constructed at no cost to the state. The individuals that work in these private prisons have no pension obligations for them from the state taxpayers. They are less expensive to operate. And after a 25-year period, the physical plant returns to the state. So that's the reason that the state has gone to private prisons. So I can see the value of that. I also see the downside to that also. The staff is not as professionally trained as our prison corrections staff are. There are some issues in private prisons. I understand that also, but we have to make a decision, and the decision is if we have individuals who are felons who have committed crimes against the people of the state of Arizona, and the jury decides that they need to be incarcerated, then we, as a society, have to figure out how we can do that and at what cost. So I look at private prisons, I look at our state prisons, and and for me, it's a funding mechanism. How do we get the best value for the taxpayers' dollars?
Thank you. Mr. Knauer.
I must challenge Noel's assertion. Prisons for profit in Arizona are not saving the taxpayer any money. It's costing us much more than the state could do it. Privatization equals piracy, all right? That's a given. And, the feds are making noises about eliminating prisons for profit. And if it's not Prison Corporation, what is it? Corrections Corporation of America is one of these that's privatized detention centers for immigrants who are railroaded in there. And the reason the state has gone this route, it's not economic, and I cannot say what it is, but it's more than mysterious. I would suggest racketeer influence and corrupt organization. Now, there's complicated conveyances for when these are built and transferred to the state. The corrections officers, I think they're having a hard time filling those positions because they're understaffed. It's dangerous work, and they're understaffed. And the conditions, for instance, up there, is that Green Valley or Golden Valley outside of Kingman with that medium security prisons. Well, that's another thing, the categorizing of the prisoners. The high security prisoners were put in with the medium and low security. It was just chaos, just slovenly. And then when I met Director Ryan down at a hearing in the Capitol, he said that, that's all taken care of. And then we had the riots after the fact. The track record is not good. Oh, and so besides eliminating private prisons, we need to abolish the death penalty. That's part and parcel. We have a clemency board down in Phoenix, which is a joke. Even they'll ignore the governor's.
Thank you. Mr. Pearson.
The Correction Corporation of America, through its umbrella organization, the American Legislative Exchange Council, co-wrote Senator, Russell Pierce's 1070 anti-immigration bill, however many years ago. They're not in it to offer correctional facilities. They are in it to influence state policy that ensures full beds. The recidivism rate at private prisons is off the charts. The conditions are such that the federal government recently just made a formal statement. They will no longer send federal prisoners to these. They are a for-profit organization. For-profit means they have to fill the beds. Track the money. I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but the Corrections Corporation of America has also been traced to the no vote for the 205. They want full beds. And it is under the same umbrella organization, American Legislative Exchange Council, the privatization agenda of the American Federation for Children, which has flooded one of my opponent's campaigns with over $37,000 in advertising support. This isn't done for efficiency. It's not done for cost effectiveness. That's absurd. It's done to promote an ideology and nothing else. And we are not going to change that until we reduce the influence these political action organizations posed as social benefit privatization companies, we need to remove that facade. We need to clean up and open up the transparent process that these issues are worthy of.
Thank you. Mr. Stringer, your 30-second response.
Thank you. I just wanted to pick up on a comment that Representative Campbell made. I tend to agree with him. I think he's absolutely right. The reason that we have many jurisdictions, including Arizona, has gone to private prisons is they do provide a benefit to the taxpayer. They are in many cases more efficient. Their cost per prisoner per day is lower than the state average. Their wages for their employees, they don't entail pension benefits and things of that nature. Their employees don't have, thank you.
Thank you. Our next question from Mr. Campbell. What do you say to the people who are concerned there is no financial accountability with ESAs, Empowerment Scholarship Accounts?
I say that they're misinformed because there is accountability with ESAs. In fact, ARS 15-2403 says that the Department of the Treasurer shall conduct annual, quarterly, or random audits of ESA accounts to ensure compliance. And if they find misabuse, they refer that to the Attorney General for criminal investigation. Only eligible expenses are qualified to be the money to be used for qualified purchases for the students. Parents must submit a quarterly expense report with receipts attached. They've only found one case of fraud, $60,000 out of the $15 million that was spent on ESAs, and the funds are recouped by the Attorney General. Most cases are mistakes. For example, parents might purchase both the hardware and the software, by the computer and by the software. Only the software is eligible for a purchase. So this canard that there's no accountability is exactly that. There is accountability. It may not be what, and I don't know how it could be any better than to require that parents who take this money to be spent on the education of their children are required to file documents and reports.
Thank you. Mr. Knauer.
Yeah, thanks. The schools themselves are not necessarily accountable. There's something called selection bias. The people who are fleeing the district schools to put their kids in these charters and parochial schools and homeschooling and online programs, for-profit stuff. Oh my God, it's only the already ambitious and privileged, well-socialized people who even know that there are programs like this ESA voucher program available. The legislature wants to expand it. It's sort of like the camel's nose under the tent. It started for disabled students, and then it was expanded. I think once they attempted to really expand it across the board. It's again just a scam, a privatization scam. We learned at a forum offered by the Northern Arizona Interfaith Council, an educational forum, that 85% of our students still attend district schools. And these ESAs are a way of siphoning our tax, our state funds from district schools into somebody's pocket. So it's the schools themselves that are not accountable. And let's see. What's another way of putting this profit motive? Greed. It's not just ideology. It's also greed. We had a senator down there in the legislature, state senator, who was like the chair of the education committee, then left to go and work for one of these online or private programs, siphoning money from the state funds.
Thank you. Mr. Pearson.
For one's political ideology to embrace the idea that public institutions are inherently flawed and even evil, your policy needs to ensure that you are right. Your policy needs to ensure that public institutions fail. The voucher program, the ESA program, it's one thing to be for school choice, but not at the expense, the intentional expense of our public institutions. The way it's set up now, accountability, keyword, random audit. You look at what our public school systems have to go through every year. Kevin Dickerson and Joe Howard here at Prescott Unified School District do a masterful job with gutted resources. And despite what one of my opponents might say that they do fine with less, they'll do better with even less than that. They do just fine, and they are recognized nationally as exemplary in transparency and accountability, not randomly, but every single year. I will quote some of the strongest supporters for the recent Prescott Unified School District bond and override who come from there is no aisle, came from across the political spectrum. School choice needs to be done on an open playing field. It simply isn't. In 2 minutes, I cannot begin to explain how many benefits that the privatization and the voucher program has over the public school accountability. We need to ensure that those same accountability standards are enforced, and we also need to ensure that we are not drawing funds intentionally based on ideology from public institutions that are the cornerstone of thriving economies and thriving communities.
Thank you. Mr. Stringer.
Thank you very much. I believe the question was about empowerment scholarships, accounts, and accountability. Am I correct? And I think Mr. Campbell is right when he cites and reads the Arizona statute on this. There is a requirement for audits, and random audits are the same kind of audits that the IRS does. So random audits are probably the best kind of audits because you don't know when you're going to get audited. So there is an element of accountability. I say an element because it may be that we need more. Remember now that the Empowerment Scholarship Account, the ESA, is a relatively new program. I believe it's less than 5 years. And it's very, very small. It's a tiny percentage of the children that are in Arizona public schools that are eligible for ESAs. And the available scholarships, if you will, have not been fully utilized. So actually, I think Mr. Nauer makes a point that it is parents who are motivated, parents who have a need, who are pursuing the ESA accounts. I don't think that ESA accounts are a threat to public education whatsoever, because the ESA account requires a highly motivated parent. A parent is deeply involved in their children's education, and we know that there's a range, if you will, of parental interest in this kind of thing. Many people are very satisfied with the public school or the charter school that their child attends and is not interested in pursuing an ESA, has no need for an ESA. But I do think there are many families who find it useful, and I think it's a valuable resource to have available. It may well be, this is a new program, it may well be that we need to adjust the accountability standards, and I would say the academic requirements as well. But in concept, I think it is a valuable thing.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell, your 30-second response.
Yes, I'd just like to state that the Arizona Supreme Court in March of 2014 upheld the Court of Appeals decision on ESAs as constitutional. So when you hear the word scams and this kind of terminology, that's not a good description. Our courts have held that the ESAs are constitutional. And secondly, the issue was accountability. Well, the state statute requires quarterly or annual or random audits, and they've only found one case of fraud, and a very small amount. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next question for Mr. Knauer. Do you think that unlimited, untracked campaign contributions work in the interest of democracy? Do you support the Citizens United decision, or its repeal? Why or why not?
All right. Well, duh. I mean, do we want a democracy or do we want a plutocracy, oligarchy? At the Trump rally, I spoke with Congressman Franks about this very issue. He didn't even know what move to amend is. Well, it's a movement to amend the Constitution so that corporations are not considered people. Money is not speech. And so the Citizens United leads to this notion that corporations can spend unlimited, anonymously that they have a right. For instance, in Prop 205, this outfit down in Chandler, oh my God, it's Insys. Kapoor, I think, is the CEO who is cited as one of the best compensated CEOs in Arizona. They're the ones who produce, manufacture, promote fentanyl, and they're in the pipeline to market synthetic cannabis. Of course, it's a business decision. They don't want a natural product to be more readily available. And so Citizens United gives Insys another RICO perpetrator to donate one of the proponents of the No campaign on 205 says, oh yeah, I think they have a right, freedom of speech. Well, this is what Citizens United is about. Soylent Green is people. Dig?
Thank you. Mr. Pearson.
Tough act to follow. The 205 measure right now is exemplary of the influence. I'm not going to vote on it because each side is terribly flawed as a direct result of the influx of outside money. As you mentioned, the manufacturers of fentanyl, the synthetic narcotic that Prince died from, are some of the biggest funders for the No. Yes, has got corporate agriculture behind it. Monsanto was buying up, a subsidiary of Monsanto is buying up property in the Golden Triangle of Humboldt County, California, where most domestic marijuana. Nobody in this state is going to make an objective argument looking at the influence of dark money. Citizens United is one thing. I keep telling people we have something in Arizona that we can impact. Senate Bill 1516 last year raised the amount individuals can contribute anonymously through PACs, outside dark money PACs, and reduced the reporting requirement. Noel Campbell took some pride earlier in this campaign that he was the only Republican that voted against it. He should be embarrassed. We all should be embarrassed at the influx that has flooded this campaign from the American Federation for Children and others. The amount of money that is spent, I have to agree with Hariaksha. It's turning not into democracy. Elections are being bought, not won. And that is just inherently wrong at every single level I can think of. What can we do as state legislators? We need to repeal Senate Bill 1516 next year and reduce what we've seen this year of just this ridiculous amount. Now, this district is not unique. It's flooded every district in this state. And we need to address that and bring it back to objective discussion rather than propaganda.
Thank you. Mr. Stringer.
Thank you. I'm wondering if anybody in this room has actually read Citizens United. I would understand why if you hadn't. It's a very, very long Supreme Court decision, well over 100 pages of very dense legal reasoning. It's a very complicated issue, but I think it's important to understand why the Supreme Court took that position and sort of the Citizens United is a result of a long line of cases that goes all the way back to the Civil Rights Movement. The reason that the court took that position is that during the Civil Rights Movement, I believe it was in the state of Alabama, could have been Mississippi, but in the Deep South, a citizens group sued the NAACP to try to force the disclosure of their donors. And the courts ruled that because forcing the NAACP to disclose their donors could subject people to reprisal and persecution, that they could be punished for the exercise of their free speech, that the NAACP had the right to keep their donor list private. And that was sort of the beginning of a whole long line of cases. So that's really what Citizens United is doing. It's allowing people to become politically active and to use their resources, because we can't all run for public office, and to aggregate their resources through their unions or through their trade associations or what have you, to aggregate their resources and to exercise their free speech. So I think that Citizens United, and I understand the problems with too much money, believe me, I'm as disgusted as you are when I turn on TV and see all these horrible political ads, many of them over the top negative. That, unfortunately, is the price we pay for democracy and free speech. So is it a problem? Yes. Is it offensive sometimes? Yes, but it is the price of free speech, and it is the price of our democracy.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you, David, for a succinct discussion of that issue in that short period of time. I voted against the dark money bill, and I had my reasons for doing that. I think that there is too much money in these campaigns. However, I have noticed that it really kind of depends on what side of the political fence you're on. When you're the out party or you're not the majority in the legislature, you tend to complain about this dark money at a much higher rate than if you were in power. So it ebbs and it flows. I think that people are smart enough to look at these negative ads. I don't even see negative ads being a bonus or benefit because people are so tired of them. They see the negativity. It works to the favor of the person that's being attacked. So it's I kind of have to hold my nose at it because I don't like it, but I don't see any way around it. It's been determined by our Supreme Court that money is a form of free speech, and so we utilize that. What we really need to do is do a better job at educating our voters. And unfortunately, in this country, 80% of those people who vote are people who pay no attention until the campaign season gets close to the election, and then this is where all this dark money and advertising comes into effect. So the better that we can educate our voters, the less impact dark money will have on the system. I don't support it. I've not used it, and I don't know. That's just where I am on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Knauer, your 30-second response.
All right, that's a quick response. I'd like to just remind the voters that I'm running a no-gift campaign. Even Clean Elections is tainted, I'm sorry. So-called Clean Elections is a step in the right direction. But Green Party is for the poor. It's not for the middle class. It's for the poor and those who are pretty much voiceless. And my natural constituency, frankly, I have a hard road, a hoe, getting them to even register to vote because they're so disenfranchised.
Thank you. We will now move into the part of the debate where each candidate will receive a separate question with 1 minute to response. Remember, you may submit a question via the note card and direct it to a specific candidate. The first question goes with Mr. Stringer. What is your level of support for our public schools versus private, and what would you do once in office to raise funding of our schools to improve teacher retention?
Thank you for asking that question. I don't know who it was, but it's a perfect question for me. I support increased funding for public education. I am a product of public education. I attended public K through 12 schools, and my law degree and my accounting work was all done at public universities. I'm enrolled at ASU right now. I'm in a public university right now getting a master's degree in education. And at the risk of sounding immodest, I don't think there are too many people in politics in Arizona today who are as deeply interested and as deeply knowledgeable about the issues facing Arizona's education. I support increased funding, particularly higher wages, higher salaries for teachers, because that's the best argument you can make for increased funding. We're losing so many of our teachers. There is a teacher crisis in Arizona. We need to step it up in terms of teacher pay. What would I do? I think there are areas in our state budget, and I will name corrections specifically. It's very difficult for a candidate to start pointing to areas where he'd like to see cuts made, but corrections is one.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Pearson, do you see a connection between the private for-profit prison system and the push for privatizing education? Please explain.
Absolutely. I noted before. I really don't like sounding like a conspiracy theorist. I don't just sit around and Google stuff all day and night. But the fiscal and financial connections between the privatization agenda subgroups and the overall umbrella, American Legislative Exchange Council is one. Privatization is being pushed not for effectiveness, not for efficiency. It's being pushed based on ideology. And you cannot separate one from the other. In fact, some of the places, they're the same people. I sat out in the audience during the primary debate, and I paid attention. I've been watching. Coming back just quickly to the issue of teacher pay, and I quote, "Teacher pay is not an issue in Prescott because of the low cost of living." That is a quote from one of my opponents.
Thank you. Mr. Kanar, what role do you feel the state of Arizona should play in developing clean energy sources?
Oh, terrific. We're so poised for solar. Maybe wind is a little less efficient, but we can do wind too. And peak oil, even peak copper, all these fossil fuels are a finite resource. And renewables, not nuclear, which is not a renewable. If you take it out of the ground, it's not a renewable. There are even people wanting to call incinerators an alternative, a renewable resource. So Arizona, we can do this state by state. In fact, a study at Stanford, among others, has shown that we can be off fossil fuels 100% on renewables, by 2030. If there's a will, and it provides so many jobs. It's just a win, 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 win. Win.
Thank you. Question for Mr. Campbell. Why aren't employers of illegal immigrants being held accountable? What would you do?
Well, that's because when they set up the law under the Reagan administration, employers were only asked to be shown documents. The law gave them a huge loophole. They did not have to verify the documents. It just had to be prepared documents to be shown, and that's what happened. And that created a whole industry of counterfeiting phony documents. And so that's still the law in many places, not here in Arizona because we have E-Verify. E-Verify matches up the documents with Social Security records, et cetera. But that was a huge problem, a huge loophole, and it's one of the things that's got to be closed. If you really want to stop illegal immigration, you have to ensure that the work is only allowed first and foremost to citizens of this country. And then when we have done that, then we can certainly look at temporary labor or expanding the visa cards and H-1B visas.
Thank you. Mr. Stringer, do you support Donald Trump's build a wall mantra? Do you support any other solution to the immigration problem?
I think Donald Trump has captured the imagination of many Americans who've been adversely impacted by uncontrolled immigration, particularly illegal immigration. So I think it's an idea that has sort of taken hold, and I think it's something that could well happen if he was elected president. I don't know that a literal physical barrier across the entire southern border is really going to be a viable solution. I think there may be other more cost-effective ways to do it. I think a wall could be part of the solution in many places. We actually have walls up now. Walls have been around for a long time. China had a wall, and East Berlin had a wall. Israel has a wall today separating the West Bank and Jerusalem, and those walls work. Have worked. So a wall can be part of the solution. Whether it's going to be Trump's plan, I actually don't know, and I think there might be other viable options besides that.
Thank you. Mr. Pearson, what is your view of the American dream, and what should be the role of government in helping individuals achieve that dream?
In 1 minute, I believe in public responsibility, public engagement for the public good. Noel Campbell's Bill of Fame regarding the recovery homes here was a regulatory bill. We need public intervention to ensure public good. Our schools, our infrastructure, our national treasures, the Grand Canyon, these are public good assets that hold such a place in our society. The privatization agenda, based on simple ideology, is an absolute contradiction to the public good. You can label me a tax and spend liberal. No, throwing money at things don't work, but pulling money away certainly ensures failure. Public responsibility, public investment for the public good. Simple as that.
Thank you. Mr. Knauer, 1 in 4 kids in Arizona are considered food insecure. What are your plans to alleviate hunger in our state and district?
Alleviate hunger. Oh my God.
In a minute.
Yeah. Huh. Well, you know, we live in the desert. There's something called the food desert. It's just one of these memes. Not having nutritious food available and cheaply in so-called inner city neighborhoods. We need to enhance our public services, families in need. Social services are like our public schools in decline. They've been decimated. This is a word I'm learning from my adversary here, Peter, ideology. We're all in this together. And we need a little bit of compassion, empathy, and share the wealth. Let's see, hunger for righteousness and...
Thank you. Mr. Campbell, as a Clean Elections candidate, will you please explain why you are doing joint advertisings with Mr. Stringer, who benefits from outside PAC support?
Well, you know, Mr. Stringer has a right to free speech in this country, and we have a First Amendment rights, and they apply to everybody. And if anybody wants to advertise and say nice things about me, who am I to say they're not able to do that? I had no control over Mr. Stringer's campaign. And so one of the opponents who failed in the primary, Mr. Chip Davis, he did advertising that showed me in photos with him, and I was not part of that campaign. So I can't control who says what and does what. Everyone has a free right to use the First Amendment for free speech, and I certainly didn't have a problem with it.
Thank you. Mr. Stringer, how do you propose we pay for such border security?
Well, federal border security will be paid for by the federal government. If we secure our border, there's going to be huge savings to the federal treasury. We're spending a lot of money. There are a lot of costs to illegal immigration, and there are a lot of collateral costs to illegal immigration. Let me just cite one example. We all remember the influx of underage children who hit our borders, was it last year or the year before? But there was, 50,000 more. About 2,000 of those children ended up in Arizona public schools, and their education is being paid for by you. So there are huge costs, huge social and financial costs associated with illegal immigration, and I think getting control of illegal immigration will result in dramatic cost savings. We all know about the hospitals in California that have closed because of the illegal immigrants going to these public facilities and demanding services and receiving services because the law allows them to receive those services, and the hospitals go broke.
Thank you. Mr. Pearson, how can you explain the problems with our PSPRS, public pension system?
I've got money in the PSPRS. I have made a living as a professional firefighter. I still do at the Williamson Valley Baghdad Fire District. Fully staffed, professional, paid advanced life support. This is both a state and a local issue. It is debilitating. The city of Prescott cannot water the streets, given their budget concerns with the PSPRS. The responsibility needs to be shared. There was terrible management, both from the firm that was handling the account, and when 2008 hit, perfect storm, 2008 gutted it, and Prescott, among a handful of other communities, I have a good number of retirees happening. We cannot move as a community towards creating a livable place until we resolve it, which is going to require, I think even most of the city council will agree now, we need some sort of shared responsibility by both the state and the local level. The local level needs more creativity in their revenue sources. We need to solve it.
Thank you. Mr. Knauer, what are your thoughts on the gun show loophole which enables firearms to be sold at guns shows without the seller having to conduct a background check on the purchaser?
The headline recently in the paper revealed that the feds are leaning on local police, law enforcement to get license plates at these gun shows. I'm scandalized by that. You know, we have a Second Amendment, a constitutional right to bear arms, and the Supreme Court has said it's an individual right. I think this is a recent ruling, like in the last 10 years or so. But gun shows are clearly a place where it's like the Wild West. We need to get these dealers in gun shows to do the background checks. It might be an inconvenience, but they can do it. If my neighbor sells me a gun, or a collector wants to trade, this is, you know, outside of this regulatory system. But gun shows definitely should be part of the system, the regulatory system.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell, your question? How do you go about getting more funds for our roads and transportation system?
I wish I had the answer to that one. Are the people of Arizona willing to pay more in fuel tax to improve the roads? We know the problems. I go all over this state. I'll be on the Committee of Transportation next session if I'm reelected, and I hope I am. And so we go. I know the problems. It's a matter of revenue. So where do we get the revenue? The gas tax has not been raised in the state of Arizona since 1990. At that time, it was, I think, 16 cents a gallon. $1 in tax revenue in 1992, is worth 47 cents today. It hasn't even kept up with inflation. So the people of this state have to determine if they want to pay more for good infrastructure and good roads.
Thank you. Mr. Stringer, if elected, will you support clean elections funding? Why or why not?
I will tell you I have mixed feelings about clean elections. Clean elections was sort of an idea that sounded very appealing, I don't know, about 20 years ago. It's a voter initiative here in Arizona, so it's part of our law. But I think, was it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, the courts, actually the Supreme Court I'm speaking of now, actually knocked out the matching funds component of the clean elections provision as simply being unconstitutional. So they've lost a big piece of what clean elections was to be about, and that is to equalize candidates. A number of states that have adopted or did adopt clean elections have repealed clean elections. So I think that the result of clean elections is sort of a mixed bag. So I would depend on what the exact proposal was vis-a-vis clean elections. I'm not opposed to the concept. I think in concept it was probably a very good idea, a very appealing idea originally.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Pearson, what is your opinion about artificial entities like corporations having all the same rights as people?
That's a fairly deep philosophical question that makes for good T-shirts and good bumper stickers. I've got a T-shirt, come to think of it. I'll believe that corporations are citizens when Texas executes one. I am a firm believer that this facade of corporate spending in our elections, which is literally just giving privilege to the ultra-rich, that's not a cost of democracy. That's not a price of democracy, nor is it democracy. That is a surreal argument to make. Our election, you look at this national campaign right now, without the flood of money supporting this advertising fiasco that could have supported 19 third world countries, that's not democracy. We need to pull back and restore the rights of the individual citizen.
Thank you. Mr. Knauer, what is your position on recently signed legislation that makes it more difficult for voter outreach groups to collect and drop off early ballots in Arizona?
So much baloney. So good. It's targeted at the Puente and, the Mi Familia Vota, these Hispanic groups. And Randy Peraz, is that the name of the activist, who was taking, maybe according to Michelle Reagan, laundry baskets full of ballots. Well, why not? And then she goes around and sends one of her workers upstairs to collect ballots from her the other people in the executive tower, and she claims that she has the privilege because as an elections worker, Secretary of State's office, Department of Elections, she's exempt from the law. Nobody's above the law, but why would I be criminalized for taking my neighbor's ballot? It's just so much bologna and cheese.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell, regarding the marijuana ballot issue, if this doesn't pass, but it is close, would you support the legislature taking up a good and safe bill to legalize it? Why or why not?
Absolutely not. I think legalization of marijuana is a destructive thing for the state of Arizona and our youth. All we have to do is look to the state of Colorado, and we'll see the THC content of marijuana is so high, and what it does to developing brains is unbelievable. And why would we legalize something that's so harmful to the youth of this state? So I oppose 205. I'll do everything I can publicly to defeat that.
Thank you. Mr. Stringer? Will you take a pledge to amend the Constitution to end corporate personhood and money as speech? Why or why not?
I am not uncomfortable with Citizens United. And the criticism, I think, comes mostly from people who've never read the decision and don't understand the progeny and the antecedents of Citizens United. If you read the decision, there's nowhere, and I've read it very closely, there's nowhere where it says that corporations are people. Corporations have many of the same responsibilities as people. You can sue a corporation. Corporations have fiduciary responsibilities to their employees and to their stockholders and their owners. So if corporations have responsibilities, why wouldn't they have protection of the law since they have these responsibilities? So they have some of the rights and privileges, but corporations don't vote. Corporations can be perpetual. There's many unique features of corporations. The Supreme Court has never said corporations are people.
Thank you. Mr. Pearson, what is your belief about climate change and its causes?
I believe in science. I spent a good number of years working remote air ambulance in Arctic Alaska, and you've seen in New York Times and CBS the story of Shishmaref up on the Arctic Ocean, the Chukchi Sea. It was one of the most frequent villages I flew to. English is a second language. Siberian Yupik is spoken. Sucks and means how you doing. We've had to divert takeoffs in a King Air 200 because the runway is washing into the ocean. Homes are washing into the ocean. The infrastructure in Arctic Alaska is collapsing because it's built on permafrost. We tend as a people, especially in America, we make political and moral decisions like whether we believe in climate change based on our intuition and our gut or emotion, and we find research to back it up. From firsthand experience, my own experience, and again, can I transfer that to others? I've seen it firsthand. I've seen buildings falling into the Arctic Ocean. I'm a firm believer in science. If you look at the history of the people that are in denial, it goes back to the cigarette industry.
Thank you. Mr. Knauer, do you support Proposition 205? Why or why not?
All right, that's adult cannabis, right?
Yes.
Well, of course I do. It's a criminal justice thing. We're railroading people into the criminal justice system for what? Oh, my God. It's flawed, and I believe it can be tweaked. Michael Weiser, who's running against Paul Gosar, for U.S. congressman in our district, was instrumental in writing it. He assured me that this marijuana Department of Licensing and Control can change the quantities and the penalties, as can the legislature. Colorado has had an influx of immigrants. There's so many consequences in Colorado. All we're hearing from the well-financed no crowd is the flaws. And they're so full of misinformation, like the rate of teenage or children's use going up. When they legalized medical, yes, it did. But between 2006, it did not go up. They're giving us misinformation.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell, your next question. You mentioned that the THC level of cannabis is so high it affects use and therefore should remain illegal. Would you apply the same logic to alcohol spirits as well, say 120 proof and above?
Well, I think that whatever the legal limits of sale of alcohol are about right. I mean, it's advertised when you buy alcohol what the proof of it is. So, I mean, you know, I'm not a big fan of alcohol either, but we have had a long history, cultural history with alcohol, and it has many problems, and we know those problems. We as adults have to be careful about that. But I just, for the life of me, can't understand why we would introduce another addictive substance into our culture and promote it. I am very disappointed that the Democrat Party is supporting Prop 205. My God, we'll know in 5 years what's happening to the youth of this state. And believe me, it's going to affect the young people of this state. We already have a heroin epidemic here. I mean, what are we coming to? So for that reason, I could never support 205.
Thank you. Mr. Stringer, there is a proposed ballot initiative in signature gathering stage that seeks to repeal Arizona death penalty and replace it with life in prison. What is your stance on the death penalty?
I am a reluctant supporter of the death penalty. I believe that the death penalty is appropriate in some instances, very rare instances, but I think it's an important law enforcement tool. I also think there is justice behind it. If you destroy another human life willfully, with premeditation, with malice, some of the cases we see are simply horrendous in terms of torture and mutilation and things like that. People do, a very small number of people, can do really horrible things. So I don't think Israel made a mistake when it executed Adolf Eichmann. I think there are people who commit horrendous crimes, and we should be able to at least have a law in the books that would hold them accountable. Do I like the way it's enforced? Selectively and inconsistently, no. But I do think that in concept, the death penalty serves an important law enforcement purpose.
Thank you. Mr. Pearson, what do you believe is the appropriate role for state government that it should play in encouraging job creation? Again, what do you believe is the appropriate role state government should play in encouraging job creation?
I'm still waiting for a 205 question from somebody. This is like Peter Tosh versus Reefer Madness. It's absurd. Strong beliefs. I've got a background in community. I've got a BA in poli-sci and economics. I've followed economic development patterns in urban areas for years. Arizona has been plagued by an economic development policy of tax incentives, giving tax breaks for relatively transient, low-paid jobs that come and go. I am a firm believer in reinvesting in the quality of place attributes that bring people, and not just bring people, but bring people to stay. We've got Embry-Riddle students in the audience that I do have to note are not paid by me, that we keep drawing these students here, but we do nothing except complain that they don't stay. We need to create an environment, quote Harry Oberg in the mayoral race, we need to create an environment that brings them here and keeps them here, the type of place they want to come and stay. This is an idea-based economy. We need to reinvest in things like education and infrastructure. Easy to do. We had tax surpluses that were wasted last year.
Thank you. Mr. Knauer, what should the state of Arizona do regarding taxes on individuals?
Well, I was just reading the constitutional mandate about maintaining, supporting our schools. And the Constitution, the Arizona Constitution says tax. What was the question again?
About taxation on individuals. What would you do about it?
Like an income tax, maybe? Taxation on individuals. Well, let me think. You know, we do want to promote the general welfare, and those of us who are in a position to pay taxes, we should pay our fair share. The arguments pro and con are often not very clear, like marginal taxes. It's not like, what's his name, the man we all despise, Warren Buffett. Pays less than the secretary. No, it's just the marginal rate or something like that is less than the secretary. We can have a whopping marginal rate, but that doesn't really confiscate all of the earnings of an ambitious, hardworking individual.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell, according to DES, most recent numbers, over 20,000 people in LD1 live in poverty. What would the role of the government be, or what should the role of the government be in helping lift these families out of poverty?
Well, I think the government needs to create, by law, a fair opportunity field so that individuals can utilize their talents and not be punished by the government or held back. I'm a big believer in the government having a level playing field and up to the individuals and to make their own decisions about their economic situation. I am not a big believer in the nanny state where the government takes care of everybody. You know, we live in a free society, and this country has always been that way. And there will be winners and there will be losers. But the role of the government is not to favor winners or losers. It's to make that level playing field through law and regulations so that every individual can, at his own effort, succeed or fail on his own merits.
Thank you. Mr. Stringer, your next question. What is your position towards the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, commonly referred to as Obamacare?
Well, first, let me say that Obamacare is a federal law, not a state law, although it has implications for the state. I am not a supporter of Obamacare. I think it is in the process right now of sort of crashing and burning. I do think it was well-intentioned, and I do think there are some components of Obamacare that are valuable and that will be preserved. But I think Obamacare took us in the wrong direction. And I think that it's going to require very substantial changes in order to be viable. So I am not a supporter of Obamacare. I believe that I think the private insurance industry actually served us much better. I believe in private sector solutions. I don't believe in socialized medicine. I don't believe in government control of medicine. I don't want the government rationing medical care. So I believe in a free market and free choice, and I think that that's what we had at one time, and that's what we should return to.
Thank you. Mr. Pearson, price hikes on important pharmaceuticals and healthcare access in general.
Again, I have to agree with Mr. Stringer. A lot of these questions, these are federal in scope. We've seen it. It makes the news. The simple idea that there are business interests buying up rights to life-saving drugs and jacking the price up 400, 500% overnight. Again, we have a public responsibility for the public good. Pharmaceuticals and unpaid medical bills because of lack of insurance are the two driving forces behind the high costs of healthcare right now. We need to encourage public regulation in the pharmaceutical industry to ensure, it's a catch-22. They'll say that, well, then we won't spend the money on research. Yeah, you will. Research is driven in part by money, but a good part by creativity. We need to return to that. How that looks, I'd be disingenuous if I said I had an idea, but we need intervention.
Thank you. Mr. Knauer, regarding higher education, what do you think the legislature should do to address college affordability and expand access?
Well, I surely do like the Green Party notion that Bernie Sanders adopted as his own free college tuition, state colleges. A state like Texas has this land-grant university with all this oil money. It's easy for them, but we could do it in Arizona too. And let's see. I remember once at a hearing, an education committee hearing down in the Capitol, one of the senators on the committee didn't know the difference between secondary and higher education. And this is the state of our legislature, another racketeer-influenced and corrupt organization. Did I mention the Democratic and the Republican parties are racketeer-influenced and corrupt organizations?
Thank you. Mr. Campbell, under what conditions would you be in favor of changing Arizona law to allow for the expansion of casino gambling beyond those located on tribal land?
I would not be in favor of that. I don't believe in gambling. They don't even call it gambling. They call it gaming. I think we have way too much of that. It's not something I would support. So I don't favor expansion of that. I do understand the casinos and where they're located. I think that we probably have enough of that already in Arizona, so I would not be in favor of expansion of more casinos in the state of Arizona.
Thank you. Mr. Stringer, in the event of a budget shortfall, what is your philosophy and approach?
You mean, how do we make up for a budget shortfall? Is that the question? How do we make up for a budget shortfall?
What is your philosophy and approach?
Well, I don't know that budget shortfalls merits a philosophy, but how would I try to deal with a budget shortfall? Obviously, we would try to find economies, but ultimately, you would either have to raise taxes or cut services, and I suspect it would be some combination of the two. I happen to admire Governor Jan Brewer, because you may recall in the last budget crisis a few years ago, she actually went out and sold a 1% sales tax to expire in 3 years. And that saved this state huge cuts to vital programs. Most people, I think, in the room are aware that I'm a very conservative guy. I don't like tax increases. I like small government and low taxes. But I did support that. I voted for it, and I admired Jan Brewer for that. And I particularly admired her for allowing that law to expire after 3 years. It was an emergency measure, and it served its purpose, and she allowed it to expire. So I don't know if that's what you mean by philosophy, but that's how I would tend to deal with budget shortfalls.
Thank you. Mr. Pearson, what are your thoughts regarding increasing the state's minimum wage?
The Arizona Joint Legislative Budget Committee did research, just actually went through existing research. The argument that it will eliminate jobs, the research is inconclusive. The argument that it'll increase prices, actually the research contradicts itself. This is one of those classic cases where we tend to make political decisions based on our gut, and we find the research to back it up. The United States just experienced its largest median income increase since records have ever been kept in 2015. 5%. That's more than any time that it's ever been recorded. Arizona, and actually in particularly the Prescott area, is 20% behind the U.S. median wage. We're becoming a service industry here because of the economic focus on tourism and retirement, which are great economic components, but not as a foundation. I do, in fact, support the increase in the minimum wage. It also allows for some adaptability.
Thank you. Mr. Knauer, what is your position regarding children of undocumented illegal immigrants born in the United States being granted legal citizenship?
Well, this is an amendment to the Constitution, isn't it already? The Chinese immigrants' children in San Francisco or something like this. Oh, Lord. This is time-honored practice, granting citizenship. And to call them, what do they call them? Anchor babies? Oh, God, there's so many insults heaped upon insults. It's like just trying to belittle the cream of the cream.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell, what is your position towards the expansion of regulation on gun ownership in Arizona?
I don't favor any expansion on gun ownership in Arizona. If there are law-abiding citizens, I favor all kind of restrictions on criminals and then felons possessing firearms. But when you're dealing with law-abiding citizens, I don't favor any additional regulations. They're not the problem.
Thank you. Mr. Stringer, what are your thoughts on a federally mandated public option as a choice in the Affordable Care Act, which would create a competition and help lower the cost of health care?
Well, again, this is a question for somebody running for Congress or the Senate. I'm just running for the state legislature. So I haven't, quite frankly, taken a position on federal legislation. I'm more concerned about legislation here in Arizona. So I must respectfully decline to answer a question that is far beyond the purview of our state legislature. Did you not know that, whoever asked that question, that this is an LD1 candidate forum, that we're not running for Congress here, running for federal office?
Thank you. Mr. Pearson, do you support Proposition 205 as written? Should it be rewritten?
It doesn't matter what I think. It matters what the voters think on this. I've said it already. Thanks for the 205 question. I have to be honest with you. I'm not going to vote. I know a lot of people are going to have a difficult time hearing that. I just think the arguments from both sides are so flawed because of the influx of outside money in this. I wear a number of hats. I'm a communications professional, a graduate fellow with Prescott College, but I've been a working advanced life support paramedic in some of the most remote places in America, in North America. 25 years. I have never once run a marijuana-related ambulance call. How many alcohol-related calls have I been on? A number in the thousands. So shall we eliminate alcohol? We tried that. I have personal opinions about it. I think the way it's being promoted is disingenuous to save education. That's not marijuana's responsibility. That's our responsibility. I'm not going to vote for it. Am I going to support it or am I going to be opposed to it? Neither. I'm going to abstain as a citizen, as a voter, and let you vote for it.
Thank you. Mr. Cano, what are your thoughts about compensation for K through 12 teachers?
Well, I heard Prescott teachers are leaving in droves, that they'll even go to Mayer, Arizona, where they get higher pay. We need to compensate our teachers. And I'd like to mention, in case we don't get to touch on this later, that I'm voting yes on 206 because I'll get a raise, a 23-cent an hour raise, starting January 1st. Teachers shouldn't have to dip into their own pockets to buy school supplies, please. And there's these gimmicks for giving student loans if they work through AmeriCorps or in rural, less served districts. Let's just remunerate our teachers adequately, and that goes for across the board. Is it stop time?
Thank you. Mr. Campbell, what are your thoughts on ways the state should address the ongoing drought affecting Lake Mead and Colorado River in order to ensure a stable water supply for future generations?
Well, the compact of the states that share the Colorado River water have to make hard choices here. We're all going to be facing, if we reach drought conditions, we're going to be looking at taking less water from the Colorado. I can't influence the weather. I mean, if it was up to me, I'd make it rain every day, and that would take care of the problem, but that's not the issue. The issue is that there's just a lot less water available for the 5 states, and there are plans in place to deal with that, and it may require that we take measured steps to deal with the usage of water and how we use it. I mean, we all know water is a tremendously valuable commodity, and we have to take steps to protect our water sources. We have to conserve it. We have to do the right thing to ensure that we do have an adequate supply of water.
Thank you. This will be our last set of questions for this part of the debate. Mr. Stringer, what is your position on actions like those taken during the last legislative session to defund organizations like Planned Parenthood?
I'm not a big fan of Planned Parenthood. I think the folks who have investigated and exposed Planned Parenthood and their performance of abortion, I think they have a valid point. Now, Planned Parenthood isn't just about abortions. They do provide very valuable services. So I'm not against Planned Parenthood as an organization. But I understand the anger of many in our community towards Planned Parenthood and some of the things they've done and the way they've gone about doing them, and the level of deception and the way they've misled the public in some areas, in particular how they have performed abortion and selling body parts and things of that nature. So I am not a strong supporter of Planned Parenthood. I understand the unhappiness of the voter about it. So it would depend on the merits of the individual proposal in
Thank
terms
you.
of how I decided
Thank
to vote.
you. Mr. Pearson, please state why voters in your district should vote for you.
I got into this race as a direct result of my work on the Prescott Unified School District bond override, which received remarkable bipartisan support. I was recruited as an understatement by a local Democratic leadership, but a good number of Republicans who also were involved in educational issues. I am receiving, excuse the superlative, but overwhelming bipartisan support for a couple of reasons. We need to send people of both parties down to Phoenix to represent the interests of us. We need people that would like to open up the government, the legislative process, rather than this, what the Arizona Republic calls a crammed down budget and policy process. We need to have the levels of discussion worthy of the complexity of the issues we face. Going down there promoting an ever narrowing and marginalizing agenda is not conducive for that happening.
Thank you. Mr. Knauer, given the current electoral environment and voters' seemingly lack of trust in their elected officials, what actions do you think elected officials can or should take to gain and maintain the voters' trust?
I'm sorry, it's too late. Throw them all in the lake. This is a time of transition. Throw them in the lake.
They don't water it anymore, didn't you hear?
A friend the other day said she will not vote for anyone whose name she recognizes. I've heard somebody say, I will not vote for anybody who has a sign out, even a yard sign. In any event, our legislature is a morass. It's like business as usual, which is to say unethical. They teach business ethics now in business school, and what they teach is to be unethical. And this budget cram down that Peter mentioned in the dead of night, there might have been a group of legislators who stood up to the leadership. We need more Hercules to clean out the Augean stables.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell, what is your position towards increasing individual states' rights and granting less power to the federal government?
Well, I support the 10th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. I support states' rights. We have a problem with the federal government, in my opinion. Too much regulation, too much out of control. I mean, all we have to do is look around. We're $20 trillion in debt. There is a day of reckoning coming into this country. It's going to be an economic catastrophe, and we better try to prepare for it. And I'm a big believer in giving the states the authority to deal with their problems, because state government is a lot closer to the people than the federal government. And city government's a lot closer to the people than the legislature. So I support at the local level. I am a believer in the Convention of the States. I support a constitutional convention to amend the Constitution. My first amendment would be term limits. My second would be a balanced budget. We have the ability to change our Constitution, and I hope we can do that before we fail. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll start the closing statements now. Mr. Stringer, will you begin your remarks?
Thank you all for being here. It's been a pleasure, and I appreciate the questions, even though you may not have liked all my answers. I thought they were pretty good questions generally. Most of you know who I am. I've been involved in local tax initiatives and political questions now for several years here in Prescott. So I'm not going to go into my political philosophy. But I want to address one issue. I didn't get a question on taxes. I'm surprised, because that's probably been my strongest area of involvement. Doug Ducey, our governor, was on the cover of National Review a few months ago, and in the article it said that his goal is to reduce our state income tax to as close to zero as possible. He didn't say to eliminate it entirely, but to reduce it. I support that. I'm a supporter of low taxes and small government and leaving private individuals with the, what they earn. I think that the government is not always the solution to our problems. I think private individuals should be trying to handle their own problems without government dependency.
Thank you. Mr. Pearson.
I look out on this admittedly small crowd. Thank you all for coming, but I see a lot of familiar faces from many of the hats that I have worn in this community. I see fellow firefighters. I see people in the business community. I see people working on my campaign, educators and students. When someone comes and knocks on your door in the next coming weeks with some of my campaign material, it is just as likely to be an independent or a Republican than a Democrat. There's a reason for that. I encourage you to look at what that reason is. I just got back from Cave Creek. I skin of my teeth to get here tonight. I was meeting with the Cave Creek Education Association, which should be doing a phone ballot tonight, likely endorsing me, along with the Prescott Education Association and a long list of individuals, prominent individuals, Republicans, independents, and Democrats in this community. There's a reason for it. Educate yourself on what that reason is. And I respect all of you, every single one of you that are going to be crossing party lines and voting for me.
Mr. Knauer.
I like that. Yes, do not, please, I beg you, I beseech you, I implore you, do not vote straight ticket. Shop around. Read your voter pamphlet. All right. You know the UN's Secretary General nominee, President of Portugal, he decriminalized drugs across the board. It's an experiment. It's a bold experiment. And this is the direction we should go. Legalize it all. This is just a bid for 205. Let's see, 30 seconds. I want to mention that already I have constituents asking me to help the county pave their roads instead of subsidizing corporations. I'm usually in a slate with talking to voters with Jill Stein. Jill Stein is a candidate for U.S. president. Please vote for Jill Stein. Get informed, gp.gov, gp.us, I think it is. Oh, my God. Green Party.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell.
You know, I hope whoever is elected that goes down to the legislature will have the moral fortitude to take an unpopular vote. I've had to do that. I've had to go against my party on water issues and dark money issues. But that doesn't mean I'm not a conservative. That doesn't mean I don't believe in states' rights. That doesn't mean I don't believe in individual responsibility. I am not an advocate for more government at any level. But I will say this. I was elected. I ran twice before I lost. The third time I won. I've been dedicated to serving my community. I don't need this job. I'll be 75 in December. I'm doing it to try to do the best I can do. I don't hide from anybody. I talk to anybody that wants to talk to me, and I don't have all the answers. And I hope that I am returned to office. And if I'm not, that's okay. That's our process. That's a democratic process. And so I'm happy with that. We have the best system in the world. Thank you.
And to our candidates, we thank you very much for attending our forum on this Friday night. And to our audience, we thank you for taking the time to come and inform yourselves before voting. We encourage you to visit www.azcleanelections.gov, where you can find information on the upcoming elections. You can also download the Clean Elections app and learn about the candidates running for office. A link to this video of this debate, as well as other Clean Elections debates, will be posted in the site within 72 hours of a scheduled debate. Please fill out the debate evaluation forms that you received when you came in today and return it to one of the volunteers. Your feedback is very important to the commission, and it'll help improve future debates. So thanks again for all of you coming tonight, and you are welcome to stay and speak directly with the candidates.